Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We just did all of our picks for the Big Ten. Hopefully they are not too contentious for some people in the comments, but I'm sure I'll get something or other that will make some fan bases mad. But overall, let's get into the segment 4 here, and let's break down the group of 5. That is the other part of this equation. When you get into the playoff, you got to have one of these teams, and frankly, think it's going to be really hard to get more than one of these teams in there. So it's going to be one, and they got to come from a ton of different teams in the group of 5. So let's break down all of these conferences and give you guys an idea of just where everything sits. Who is the favorite? Who are the teams that are challenging? Who are the teams that are not really in the picture for that one? So let's start off here with the American, the conference that everyone seems to think is going to be the one that represents the group of 5 in the playoff. A ton of really good teams in this conference, and definitely someone that can make some noise. So I think there's definitely a ton to track here, but Memphis is the team that everyone's really chasing going into this year. Seth Hannigan at quarterback's an absolute beast and has as much confidence in this offense as anyone in the country. I'll be totally honest with you. He is definitely a very talented guy, and I think that Florida State game early on in the season could be a huge moniker for where this team is compared to everyone else in this conference. But then you have teams like Tulane that absolutely can make some noise. A really, really good team. They're one of those teams kind of like Kentucky and Syracuse that I just have a really, really soft spot for. I think Ty Thompson throwing to guys like Shaz Preston, Mario Williams, Keith Brown is just going to be so much fun to watch. So absolutely love that Tulane team. UTSA is another team you definitely have to watch here. They have one of the best coaches in the conference and absolutely is someone that is going to have a ton to say in this conference. They are replacing Frank Harris from a year ago, which will be very tough, a very talented quarterback that they have, but they have some dudes, and especially if they're corner Denver Harris that has bounced around to a number of different places, but is a very talented kid, was a 5-star coming out of high school. If he can play consistent football, this is a team that can get really, really fun really fast. And then you have USF, a very talented team. It's Byron Brown. I would love to expand on that a little bit, but the reality is Byron Brown is the biggest difference maker in the group of 5, not named Caden Salter, if you were to ask me. He is an absolute game changer and someone that can totally just take over this conference and be one of the great stories in college football this year. So we can talk about a million things with South Florida, but Byron Brown is absolutely that guy. College football players absolutely do get paid at this point. Excuse me, I apologize. In the American, you do also have ECU, Rice, North Texas, Army will all be solid, but not necessarily compete for this conference. And then everyone else, it's going to be rough. I'll just put it that way. Conference USA is a very, very fun one, but frankly, a very straightforward one as well. Liberty is the team that everyone is chasing, and it's going to be really hard to catch them because they are very far ahead, and Caden Salter is a huge reason for that. I think they could be a lot of things could go wrong and they could still win this conference. That's why they're minus odds to win the conference. You also have some other teams on the outskirts that could cause some problems. WKU is the one that I'm watching most closely. It might be TJ Finley's team. It might be Caden Veltkamp's team. Regardless, they're throwing the ball around a ton. They are going to spread this defense out, whatever defense they're playing, and they are definitely a threat to Liberty if they can get things rolling in the passing game. Jacksonville State is another one that I'm watching very closely, a very good team and has one of the best O-lines in the group of 5, led by one of the best O-linemen in the entire country with Clay Webb. So they're going to run the ball, they're going to be aggressive, and maybe take the wind out of Liberty's sails and possibly get a win there when they absolutely need one. And then Sam Houston is another team that you should definitely watch. They've kind of become a place for some Power 4 transfers to make their way down to and play some really good football. They've got some guys from Texas. They've got some guys from Oklahoma in the past. So some really talented guys. They have some really good wide receivers down there. On the defense, Sincere Jackson is an absolute beast. So definitely some noise to be made around Sam Houston this year. Middle Tennessee, Louisiana Tech, UTEP, North Mexico, and FIU, excuse me, all really talented teams, but probably won't come close to winning this conference this year, honestly. The MAC is obviously a fan favorite among the bunch. Obviously, getting those Tuesday and Wednesday games late in the season is a lot of fun, and you'll likely find that Miami of Ohio is the team that you're wanting to watch the most. Brett Gabbert and company are really, really solid, and they can make a college football playoff run. There's no two ways about that. There's a very talented team, but they got a ton of people to go through to get there. And the biggest one is Toledo, a very talented team that is replacing Daquan Finn this year with Tucker Gleason, a former Georgia Tech transfer, but a very talented guy that can throw the ball around quite a bit. Jarquez Stewart is a absolute beast at the running back position. They do have some other guys on the outside that absolutely can make some noise, and they're going to need to if they can win this conference. Also, they have a kid named Junior Vandross. If he's related to Luther Vandross, then this might be my pick to win the MAC, but that's beside the point. Bowling Green is another team that I'm watching very, very closely. They're going to run the ball a lot. Connor Bazelak is their quarterback there. He was the former Missouri quarterback, and they do have guys like Jalen Tillman and Malcolm Johnson on the outside, but Terrion Stewart is where the show is. He's the guy that is absolutely going to make the most noise here and definitely be someone that is going to be a problem for most defenses he faces. Western Michigan is really, really fun. They're starting to row the boat once again up there, so definitely a really interesting team. Hayden Wolf leading the way with Jalen Buckley right next to him, a really, really good running back. I think it's a really fun group. I don't necessarily know of how much noise they're going to make in this conference, but Jalen Buckley is a guy that can totally take over this conference and be Offensive Player of the Year in this one and just win it for the Broncos. And then Northern Illinois is the other team that I'm watching. Ethan Hampton taking over for Rocky Lombardi at quarterback. And Tario Brown is going to carry a ton of weight this year, over 1,200 yards a year ago in 2023, and definitely is going to be a very important player this time around. So other than that, you have a couple of guys, a couple of teams that can make some noise, but overall, when you look down the season, you see those Tuesday and Wednesday matchups, you're going to find these teams are the ones that are the really important ones. And then the Sun Belt is going to be really awesome to watch because it's probably going to be the most competitive of the group of five, but frankly, that might keep them from the playoff because there's going to be a little bit of cannibalism in this conference, and overall, it starts with App State. This is the team that is going to be kind of setting the pace. Joey Aguilar is a really, really talented kid at quarterback that can make some really special things happen on the football field. So he's a guy that can just take over this conference overall and win it pretty comfortably for App State. But Texas State will have plenty to say about that. G.J. Kinney has really built up a really good program up there in San Marcos, Texas, and bringing in someone like Jordan McLeod from JMU is absolutely huge, especially when it's in conference. That helps just a little bit more. Joey Hobart is a very talented wide receiver, maybe not the best in the conference, but definitely one of them, a really, really talented guy on the outside for them. Then you have a team like Louisiana, who's been a really good team in this conference for quite some time, and I expect this year to be no different. They absolutely have the dudes to make some noise and definitely are a team that are never going to be an easy out. They are never going to hand you games by any means. Then you have a JMU team that I think is going to make some noise this year, obviously replacing Jordan McLeod and about 1 million people, but Dylan Morris will get his chance under center. And then you have the Alabama team. South Alabama is replacing Kane Womack as head coach, so that'll be tough. But then you have Troy, who also is going to be a really fun team to watch. Honestly, I would love for the Sun Belt to be the team that is absolutely going to make some noise, but I don't feel confident really knocking out anyone to win this conference other than UL Monroe. No disrespect to the Warhawks, but it's going to be a rough year. I'll just put it that way. This is one of those conferences that I think is going to be the most fun, but most fun doesn't necessarily lend itself to getting into the playoff. And then you have the Mountain West. It's definitely a very, very fun conference this year, but Boise State is the team that everyone's chasing, and it makes sense. Bringing in someone like Malachi Nelson from from USC was absolutely huge. Ashton Jeanty is bigger. He is one of the best, if not the best, running back in the country, maybe the best player in the group of five, fighting Caden Salter for that right. But overall, a ton of really talented kids in this conference, and Ashton Jeanty might be the number one guy among the bunch. But then you have Fresno State, a really, really fun team that absolutely has some dudes. Corey Foreman came over from there from USC, a former number one overall recruit. So the dude can be an absolute beast and just totally wreck this conference every single week. UNLV is a really fun team and another team that I have a soft spot for. I think Brennan Marion's offense is one of those that is just a beauty to watch. There's not really much you can do. There's so many multiple formations and motions and different things that you can do out of that go-go offense that just makes it really hard for any defense to get a really good beat on it. And then they also have Ricky White, who is an absolute dude in this country and in this conference especially. Air Force is an interesting team because they will run the ball. There's no two ways about that. They will spread it out a little bit more than you're used to seeing Air Force do, but overall, they're going to be a dangerous team, and I don't know if they'll make a ton of noise here, but absolutely a team to be at least watching out of the side of your eye. Wyoming is a really fun team. They have Harrison Wally, is a very, very speedy guy at the running back position that absolutely will make some noise. Evan Svoboda, is a very talented guy at the quarterback position that has a ton of comfort in this offense. And then Colorado State, a really, really good team, and definitely a team that could pop up out of nowhere this year. Torrey Horton is one of these special guys at wide receiver across the country. Braden Fowler Nicolosi is really, really comfortable in this offense and is in full control most of the time. So we'll learn a ton about this team going in to week 1 when they face off against Texas. And overall, this conference has dudes, whether it's Ricky White, Torrey Horton, Ashton Jeanty. They have plenty of guys that are going to be really, really fun to watch. So overall, the group of 5 is always really, really tough to pin down, especially this year when only about one of them is getting in. It might just be a little bit tougher to pin down, but overall, it's going to be awesome to watch all of those conferences. Cannot wait to get into the Sun Belt. Although it might not help them get into the playoff, it's going to be really helpful for me to enjoy those games, that's for sure. But at the end of the day, it's going to be awesome to watch that unfold. Maybe the most interesting thing to watch unfold throughout the year. But let's take our last break here, and when we come back, we'll do Monday questions around fall camp. Still a ton of things to figure out across some big-time universities out there, so I'll break that down right after this, so stick with us.